Howdy again everyone, it's about time I tested some more Fuji lenses, get some value for money out of my X-T3 camera. I'll be covering some of Fuji's latest new lenses soon, but this time I want to test out one of their older ones, yet one that's pretty important in their lineup, the XF 50-140mm f2.8 WR OIS. With its full frame equivalent zoom range of 75 to 210mm, this is obviously Fuji's take on the bread and butter telephoto zoom lens of most professional photographers, the classic 70 to 200 that full frame shooters appreciate. Here you can see one next to the other. The Fuji lens is obviously designed to cover only a smaller sized aps-c sensor, so the lens itself can of course be much smaller and lighter, although obviously full frame shooters will enjoy more shallow depth of field possibilities with their chunky lenses. Anyway, that's a very useful zoom range for all kinds of professional photography, including wedding and portrait photography, and the maximum aperture of f2.8 lets in a good amount of light and gives you nicely autofocus backgrounds. The lens costs about £1,300 in the UK or $1,600 US, so it's definitely an expensive option, but not as pricey as a full frame 70 to 200 f2.8. The lens itself is clearly aimed at professionals, and its size, build quality and fit and finish are marvellous. This is a very enjoyable lens to handle, although with its weight of nearly a kilogram, it'll definitely balance more naturally on Fuji's larger cameras. The lens's construction is a mixture of metal and heavy-duty plastic, and it comes with a strong, metal, adjustable tripod ring. Like Fuji's other XF lenses, this one features an aperture control ring, which turns with somewhat heavy clicks to it. The zoom ring is rubberized and turns extremely smoothly with no stickiness to it, but no zoom creeping either, and as you'll have noticed, the lens zooms internally. That's all great. The lens does not appear to be parfocal though. I noticed it changing focus as I zoomed in and out. At the front of the lens lies a metallic manual focus ring. Again, it turns extremely smoothly, although on my Fuji X-T3 camera it didn't work very well at all with the lens's focus motor, requiring lots of laborious turning to make anything happen. As you can see here, the lens exhibits some moderate focus breathing, zooming out a little as you focus more closely. A little bit of a pet peeve of mine that, on a telephoto lens, you're being robbed of a little bit of reach there. The autofocus motor works quietly, although you can feel a little rumbling as the lens's glass elements shift around inside. As you can see, the autofocus motor does work quickly too, although it takes just a moment to lock onto your subject fully. I'll mention now that I had one or two problems with the autofocus. When shooting at very close distances, it often failed to lock on or got a bit confused, and I had to focus on smaller subjects manually quite often. Perhaps just a problem with this copy of the lens? Well, anyway, the lens has another important feature, image stabilization. Here's some footage with it turned off and now turned on. As you can see, it makes a huge difference, which is vital for a telephoto lens. Fuji's image stabilization has always been very good. The lens comes with a deep plastic hood with a hole in the bottom for adjusting filters. Its front filter size is 72mm and it's compatible with Fuji's teleconverters, which are sold separately. Overall, the build quality of the lens is fantastic, and the image stabilization ditto, but on my Fuji X-T3 camera it didn't manually focus very well, and the autofocus was fast but not always completely reliable. I will admit the possibility though of some kind of issue with the lens's electronics. Normally Fuji lenses I test do better than that. Anyway, let's look at image quality. My Fuji X-T3 camera has a 26 megapixel aps-c sized sensor, so let's see how well the lens copes with it. At 50mm and f2.8, the lens is razor sharp in the middle of your images with very good contrast. The good news is that the corner image quality is virtually as sharp. Nice. Stop down to f4 or f5.6 for a little edge of extra sharpness there. The image stays this sharp down to f16, where diffraction creeps in and causes a little softening. Let's zoom in halfway now to 90mm. Again, in the middle of your images we see spectacular picture quality straight from f2.8. The corners are looking a little softer this time, but not too bad. Stop down to f4 for a small improvement in those corners, and f5.6 for a big improvement, leaving us with excellent sharpness across the whole image frame. Again, the lens stays this sharp down to f11. Alright, let's zoom all the way in now to 140mm. Again, at f2.8, image quality is fantastically sharp in the middle. The corner image quality is just a little softer, but still very good. f4 looks about the same, f5.6 just a little sharper, and f8 looks just about perfect. Again, stop down as far as f16 for a little softness from diffraction to kick in. Overall, it's a top performance here, pretty much exactly what you'd expect for a professional, bright telephoto zoom lens, and no nasty surprises. Okay, let's see about distortion and vignetting. Those are automatically corrected by your Fuji camera, but let's take a look at some raw images without those corrections. But it seems few corrections are really necessary. At 50mm and f2.8, all seems well. Zoom all the way into 140mm, and we see a little pincushion distortion and a touch of vignetting at f2.8. You need to stop down to f5.6 for the corners to fully brighten up. Still another excellent performance there. This lens can focus down to 1 meter when you zoom all the way in. That's not bad for getting pictures of smaller subjects. Thankfully, shooting close up doesn't really seem to affect image sharpness. Even at f2.8, the picture quality close up is excellent. Next, let's see how the lens works against bright light. At wider angles, we see a few flecks and specks of flaring here, but it's a better performance than average. Zoom in, and glaring becomes a little more prominent when bright lights are in or on the edge of your image. And now, a very important consideration, the quality of this lens's bokeh. It's a pretty clean bill of health here. The lens can get you nicely autofocus backgrounds, particularly when you zoom in a bit, of course, and they look lovely and soft around your subject. No obvious problems here. And finally, related to bokeh comes longitudinal chromatic aberration. This is another area where once again the lens has no problems. Even at f2.8, no real colourful highlighting is visible in out of focus areas. Overall, well, while it may cost a lot of money, still, this is clearly one of the best lenses on the Fuji system. Tons of sharpness, excellent image stabilization, and very useful parameters all combine to make this a professional aps-c lens to compete with its full-frame counterparts. I suspect that the mild autofocus issues I encountered were down to an issue with my camera, or perhaps this particular copy of the lens. Hopefully that's the case anyway. Well, of course, this one has to come highly recommended. It's been great to take a trip back to Fujiland today. I hope you enjoyed this review, and if you found my reviews helpful over the years, then be sure to check out my Patreon page down in the description. There, supporters can find exclusive photo and video content, and it all makes a big difference to keep this channel trucking on. Happy shooting, everyone!